Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Rosa and Rubini podcast, Making Sense of This World. My name is Manas Chavla, and as always, I'm really pleased to be joined by CEO and Head of Research, Brunello Rosa. It's been one of those weeks in geopolitics where it feels like decades has happened. And one of the things that perhaps very few people saw coming is the collapse of the Assad regime in Syria, a situation that seemed to be sort of more or less stable in a largely unstable part of the world for the last few years, especially after the Syrian civil war came to a standstill. With the regime almost instantly collapsing within a week. So we're going to unpack a bit of, what led to that, but also the consequences of this for the region, but the broader world. Brunello, let's start with some of the causes. Perhaps we should start at the Syrian civil war and some of the background since then, but also how did this rapid collapse precipitate and why did it happen in the last week?
Of course, Syria has been a very unstable territory for quite a long time now. There's nothing particularly new there. But things have really precipitated in the last 10 days. A new militia led by Abu Mohammed al-Jolani, the leader of the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, in brief, HTS, have entered Damascus few days after entering Aleppo into cover. Meanwhile, Bashar al-Assad had to flee Syria and effectively went to Moscow, let's say as a political refugee, if we can use this expression. This marked the end of a 40 plus year domination of the Assad family over Syrian politics. What's behind these? So everything started, if you want, you can always find something before. If you want, it started with the end of the British Empire in the region, and when all countries were redesigned, literally with the ruler and pen on the desert. Syria was born, but we cannot go that far. The immediate cause, of course, is the Arab Spring of, let's say, 2011, when a civil war started and never finished. Um, Assad kept somehow power thanks to the fact that he used brutally his army and the fact that it was internationally supported, especially by Russia and Iran. It was an Alawite, which is effectively a derivation of the Shia segment of Iran. So um, this is what caused the beginning of the civil war. That, of course, kind of was conducted in many years, and then many foreign countries intervened, Turkey and some of the Gulf states among the key ones. But then clearly this thing couldn't last forever, and things precipitated last week.
Exactly. And there's also sort of a pretty key international element to all of this. Syria had allies, Russia and Iran, who did not come to its support kind of within the final moments. What led to that? Was that one of the factors that led to this?
So the key factor is that, as we know, there has been an ongoing war in Gaza, and then kind of spread to Lebanon and the West Bank. And then that led to the end, if you want, of the decapitation of Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. And Hezbollah was a key supporter of the Assad regime. And once there was this massive attack on Hezbollah by Israel, they had to kind of come to the rescue of their own militias in Lebanon. By doing so, they left Syria effectively uncovered. And this is what HTS has quite kind of, I would say, smartly and quickly realized. that they had a once in a lifetime opportunity to enter Aleppo first and Damascus afterwards, as they did, because Hezbollah was not there to defend the regime once again. And so um, that was what caused such a rapid collapse, marking, if you want, a defeat for Putin and also for the Iranian regime as well. Putin, that has tried to strenuously defend Assad for the last 10 plus years, somehow successfully. Um, and the Iranian regime for the reasons we discussed before. So the militias entered Damascus, took power, Assad fled, end of the regime, beginning of a new phase.
Yeah. And then as we look towards the consequences ahead, I mean, this is clearly a pretty destabilizing and rapid occurrence in the region. What are some of the risks that lie ahead, both internally for Syria, for the region, but also for the world?
So for Syria is the risk of creating another failed state, similar to Libya and to some extent Lebanon itself. Yet on the still on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea, which now start becoming quite a dangerous place because you have a constellation of failed states
Mhm.
with natural resources, including oil, no clear um, rulers, no real leaders, militias opposed to one another, and no clear direction. And of course, infiltration of terrorist groups and all sorts of organization. I mean, let's not forget that HTS itself was once affiliated to Al Qaeda itself. It's kind of ironic that the 9/11 attacks on the Twin Towers in New York that were attributed to Al Qaeda eventually led 24 years later to an Al Qaeda led regime in one of the key countries of the region. So something must have gone badly wrong in the history. So another failed state is a possibility for Syria, the division of the country in various regions and territories controlled by some militia of the place. That's domestically. Regionally, clearly, this is another domino that falls in the Middle East. I mean, somehow Netanyahu thought that he could go around the region, destroy everything that he found along the way, killing thousands of people just to kill one terrorist. So hard to describe this as collateral damage, making entire parties and organizations collapse, entire territories of the region remaining with a vacuum of power. And of course, the vacuum is not allowed in power. Somebody else always comes to the fore. And this is what happened. So the risk is now a further regionalization of the conflict. More globally, clearly, here we got that what happens when countries become utterly unstable, that eventually Western countries need to step in. The Americans have done a few times, the Europeans have done a few times. None of these occasions has been particularly successful. So the real risk here is the repeat of a story that we have already seen a number of times, has failed a number of times, only to more instability, and this will eventually become another failure story. So hopefully it's not going to be that way, but all elements point in that direction.
Absolutely. We started off this call talking about just how much has gone on within a very short week. But I think it also goes to show how interconnected a lot of these events are that we might think are disconnected, right? If it wasn't for, as you mentioned, Hezbollah being significantly weakened, and by extension, Iran being somewhat weakened, it's very likely that this sort of massive attack could have had a bit more resistance to it from the Assad regime, or at least that it wouldn't have fallen as quickly. So much more to watch in the weeks to come, and possibly the days to come as the situation evolves very quickly on the ground.
Absolutely.
As always, Manal, thank you so much for your time and insight.
Thank you very much. Until next time.